All right. Well, we're gonna move from music to dating. I feel like we've been talking about dating all day. Incidentally, it's like interesting to me. Like that's the real takeaway from Glimpse 2.0 is everybody's just looking for love in all the right places. So this should be really great. I'm excited to hear this. Moderated by Evelyn, Rusli, reporter at the Wall Street Journal. We have Colin Hodge, co-founder and CEO of Bang with Friends. Geoff Cook, co-founder and CEO of MeetMe, and Christian Wiklund, co-founder of Skout. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Casey. Okay. So, dating again. Just thinking back to several years ago when I got out of college and into the adult dating scene. I feel like back in 2006, a lot of my friends, when we talked about these dating sites and like eHarmony, for example, everyone used to say, well, I don't know if I do that because I feel like there's a lot of weird people there. And you shift to today, 6-7 years later, and I feel like it's completely changed. And a lot of people, if they're not completely actively involved in your apps, they're at least testing them out, and the stigmas have changed. So maybe a way to start off is talking about how the dating landscape has changed dramatically and continues to evolve rapidly, and kind of what that means for your companies and how consumer attitudes are changing as it becomes a more mainstream, natural way to do it. And as Casey mentioned, it seems like everyone is looking for love in these places. So I don't know who wants to kick it off here.
Sure. So, when we ask our users why they use MeetMe, 3/4 of them will say to make a new friendship, right? And so I think the fact of the matter that they're joining a social network for meeting new people, not necessarily a dating site, removes some of the stigma, right? Because you can imagine there's stigma associated, and there still is, with speed dating events, right? You go to a particular purpose. Everyone's very purposeful. They're looking for a date, and a significant other. I think of social networks for meeting new people more, and I think we're on the same page on this, is kind of the digital bar or the coffee house. It's more of a social gathering place. And so when you start from this social friendship first orientation, I think you take some of the stigma out of it.
Yeah, and Colin, I'm interested to hear from you actually, because I think even the name alone of your company, Bang with Friends, kind of shows how far or how not far we've come in dating. And so I'm curious what you think it means, and how people are kind of using your app today in ways that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely more to the point and focused on dating. I think Skout and MeetMe and others have kind of paved the way and made it just more mainstream to use an app like that in a casual manner instead of relying it as your sole way to date. And so I think that's where we see it going is, Bang with Friends or Skout or MeetMe will be where you turn to as a supplemental part of your dating life, and everybody will be using apps like this. Whereas in the past, it was very often seen as, I can't find a date somewhere else, therefore I'm solely focusing on eHarmony or Match. So it's definitely evolved, and it's definitely allowed us to come in and just say, honestly, enough with the bullshit. You're here for this, so why don't you say it?
That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Do you think that, in a way, there's sort of an explosion of choices to now find a mate or a casual mate? Do you think that eventually this market that is, in a way, very crowded with a lot of different types of apps will kind of contract, and people will perhaps drift to certain services just based on what they, the goal, I guess? Like, if you want to do casual dating, if you want to do something for professional relationships or for kind of serious long-term relationships, is that the way that people are going to approach these apps? Because when I talk to my friends, they're like, I'm not really sure which to use and how to use it. It's all kind of complicated in a way.
I think there will definitely be consolidation amongst the dating apps and amongst the general meet people apps. But beyond that, we definitely have grander visions than being in just one vertical of, hey, I'm here to bang, or whatever that is. So the idea being, like, we want to be able to give people a way to say their true intentions with that friend or with potentially whoever that is in a way that is beyond just banging and is very straightforward.
Do you guys have any interesting insights, data? I love like going to OkCupid's site and like getting kind of some of their analytics and such, and every now and then they put out this report. I'm curious if you guys have any, as it relates to what we're discussing, just how habits are changing or any stats on that you can share.
So I would say that we have one metric that's the only metric we really measure. That's the number one metric, and it's human connections. And a connection we define as 6 messages, 3 back and forth, and we've seen statistically that after that hump, then it leads to more meaningful engagement and long-term conversations, gifts get sent back and forth and so forth. Look, I don't think this is in particular a new field, right? When I was 12, some kids, they become punk rockers to rebel their parents. I was big into BBSs, bulletin board systems, and I talked to other sysops, and I was on AmigaNet and talking to random people when I was 12. Then we got internet connection, and I started using IRC and Usenet, and after that we had AOL chat rooms. So like there's always been this thread of people discovery online. And it never became really big. There were some dating sites that started popping up, but the perception was they're capped, like they're high churn. People come in, they're solving a problem, which is I want to get married, and when I'm done, I'm not going to use the site anymore. But looking at the opportunities out there and the serendipity that you don't get on Facebook, if you look at humans as engineered, we're socially engineered to be out, and I like to say that I'm Swedish, so I was part of the Viking thing, right? My family, and first you want to live in your tribe and have the safety, and that's Facebook, and then you want to spread your wings and maybe go as far as Denmark and see what's up, and that serendipitous component of randomness is what we try to provide, and our users will use it for anything from dating to I had a person that was under chemotherapy emailed me last week saying, it's amazing, I'm in the hospital, I chat with random people all over the world every day, and it's helping me get through this very tough chemotherapy. So like, I don't try and say we're dating or meet people or anything. Like, we want to be a platform for just connecting people, and that can be for any reason really. And I do believe that there's going to be one big network taking the entire market, maybe through consolidation. And there could also be some niche place that would work, like Bang with Friends or...
So you asked what kind of stats or what kind of insights are we seeing? We're seeing that 60% of our users meet in person, and on average they meet 3 people. So and what's interesting,
like over the course of a month,
of the people on MeetMe at that point, of a survey of 17,000 people in the last week or so, 60% have met, and then they meet an average of 3 people. And what's interesting is before meeting, they chat a median time of a month before actually connecting. So it seems like they're using the filter of online communications to determine who to potentially meet up with in real life, which I find somewhat interesting.
And what about you, Colin? Because there was actually a New York Post article, I think, on Tinder, which the whole point of it was that people were upset that they had gone on Tinder with the expectation of having a casual fling, and they were getting locked into very serious relationships. And so I'm curious if you have any interesting insights in how people are using Bang with Friends, if you're getting reports of marriages that started off as, friends with benefits or something.
Well, we haven't heard of any marriages. We've only been around for 4 months.
That's true.
So not that some people don't move that quickly, but we've heard all sorts of uses. The reason we created it is because we do believe that sex is a crucial part of relationships, and the best relationships you have are when you find somebody that you truly enjoy their company, and then you take it to the next level by adding that sexual element.
What's your current growth rate right now? You guys have over a million, right?
Yeah, we're coming up on 1.2 million users. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they log in, what was it? I think I saw a figure 70,000 times a month.
Our daily actives are around 70,000.
Oh, 70,000 daily actives.
But I did want to point out, so right now it's just limited to your friend list, and on average people are clicking 19 of their friends.
Really?
So, you know, you might be thinking,
From
okay, I don't have any friends.
Average pool of how many? Sorry to keep interrupting.
Average pool of around 700.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's the average overall, but women click around 5 on average. So they find 5 of their friends to click on, and around 85% of our matches, you know, when 2 people are paired anonymously, actually follow up with a message afterward. So they're actually using it to communicate and to plan whatever rendezvous they want to plan.
Is there a lot of awkwardness, I guess, if you don't reach out and you know you've been matched?
There might be, but you know, alcohol cures a lot of things.
So, so one of the things, I've been talking to a lot of my friends who use these apps lately, and they've been saying that it's hard actually to discover, you know, people. I think there's a lot of apps, and I think, Christian, you talked about how you want to be able to discover with small networks to large networks, and I think that flexibility is great. But at the same time, how are you guys actually thinking about, you know, elevating the best matches? I mean, when you look at Tinder, right, you kind of look through a lot of different faces, and you're just kind of basing it on location and physical features. Bang with Friends is through friends, and then through some of the larger networks. Christian, I downloaded your app actually today.
Congrats.
I'm sorry that I haven't before. So I downloaded it, and within like a few seconds, you know, you start getting these messages from all these random people, and it's
Sorry
almost,
about that.
it's almost overwhelming, you know. So I'm curious how you guys are thinking about how to help users kind of sift through the content here being prospective matches.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been lots of attempts of sort of algorithmic or scientific matchmaking. I don't believe in it. I think it's, you know, it's just a marketing thing. Like, I don't think life can be measured in a 2-dimensional sort of list of stuff. Smoker, no smoker, you know, it's more random than that. And a lot of times people who meet, you might meet someone that you never expected you would hit it off with, but you will actually hit it off with this person. So I think the randomness and serendipity is very important. And it's also a very boring life if you're suddenly going to say, I don't want to ever talk to a Swedish person. Like, you will never talk to any Swedish persons, and you might actually meet someone who's awesome. So I think it's these things are, I wouldn't say false advertising, but you know, I think it's dicey. We don't do any algorithmic matchmaking, and we would never sell that either, I don't think.
So our users are discovering each other through what they post. So we have a feed that's at the center of our app, and people post 2 million pieces of content, photos and status posts a day into it. And then we do rely on some algorithms to determine which post to show to which people. And so it's a combination, you know, of the things you'd expect: age, gender, you know, location. So people that you might be more willing to meet in real life. But where we're starting to think, you know, down the road, and what we're starting to leverage more of is, you know, if you think of, as we do, MeetMe as kind of this bar, coffee house. You know, in real life there are different types of bars. There's a sports bar. You know, there's a bar for you know, professionals. And so if we can segment you into certain buckets, then you might be more likely to kind of be at home and to find people that whose content might be even more relevant to you than, say, throwing, you know, random people who together who are, you know, just happen to be geographically near each other.
We actually did an experiment which was interesting. We did the mutual match, which was only show me people that is searching for someone like me who I'm searching for. And the amount of human connections plummeted. And the amount of engagement, minutes per day, chats per active user a day, went straight down. It was very interesting to see. I think it's less inventory, right? So there's going to be less people to actually engage with. But I think there's also this curiosity. You know, there's someone who pings me, and I never spoken to someone who lives in Seoul, Korea. Now there's this person that's 8,000 miles away pinging me. Wow, that's pretty cool. And if I would have said I only want to meet locals in San Francisco, then I would have excluded myself from that experience. So that's what we saw, at least, that, you know, less matching filters, more engagement, and the users will stick around longer on our network.
So for us, we actually show results randomly right now, but I think you know, if you're going to look at this in terms of a relationship, right now we're kind of holding hands with the social discovery in the dating space, and we want to take it to, you know, a home run. So the way you can do that is, for us, well, I mean, really, you need to add context to who the people are that you could potentially meet. And for us, that's starting with a friend connection. That's a very strong signal. We're not saying that they're a great match for you. We're saying that they're a validated real person. And I think that's important. But as we evolve it, adding in certain ways to filter people and sorting, like you suggested, really will be important, because there's so many more people we can meet now and connect through. You know, now I can meet somebody in Seoul, Korea. So I should be able to have a way to find out, should I meet that guy, that girl, who in that city? And I think we're in the very early stages there. There's a lot of work that we all can do to improve that.
Are you planning on widening the network, the pools of possible users that you can reach
Yeah,
out to?
I'm definitely hinting at that.
Okay, got it. Now, one of the questions I feel like you could probably apply to any industry these days, but I think especially with dating, is kind of the impact of mobile. And Geoff, I know we talked before about how 60% of your users are pretty much on mobile, if I'm using that stat correctly. So I'm curious, you know, how you guys think about mobile, what type of new experiences that we aren't seeing today can be used, because we're constantly now using our devices that are with us every second of the day for dating,
Right.
And things like that.
So we started off as a website, and really as late as 2010, we were 98% web. We moved to iPhone, Android. Now we're 66% mobile, about 800,000 DAU on mobile today. And some of the most obvious things in terms of the shift from web to mobile has been the mobile user consumes a lot more content. So our average minutes per month per user on the web is about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And on iPhone and Android, it's 8 to 10 hours. So they consume dramatically more content. But, you know, because the advertising rates are lower on mobile, we tend to monetize mobile at a much lower rate. And that's led, at least in the last 6 to 9 months, to kind of a coordinated effort on new monetization. So we rolled out native ads. We rolled out a freemium product, a mobile subscription product. And what we found is, while the ad side of mobile is much less, the likelihood of a user to pay you on mobile is much greater, right? Because the mobile device is both a screen and for consuming content and a payment platform. And so we found that to be a pretty rich vein, where now about 40% of our mobile monetization is subscription and freemium. But I mean, the most obvious thing about how mobile changes things is, it's in your pocket. It's a device you're intimate with, you sleep next to, and you're out and about. Whether you're on the subway platform or standing in line at Starbucks, it becomes a portal to discovering the people around you. And so I think that's why mobile is in the medium term, people discovery, social networking, or especially social networking for meeting new people, in my view, is 100% mobile.
Yeah, you don't have to commit. So we're 98% mobile, and our web users have longer sessions. Like you're sitting there and you're actually using your computer. Mobile, to Geoff's point, is more. It's synchronous and asynchronous, like text messaging. That's the beautiful part. There is no online or offline. You're always on, and you can respond and have a real-time conversation. Or it's also totally accepted. If I don't respond to your SMS right now, but in 2 hours, that's also okay. And that's the beauty of it. It's not intrusive in your life. You don't need to spend 1 hour at a time. You can spend 1 hour over 20 sessions in a day instead. So it's frequent use. Like our users have pretty short sessions, but they log in, many, many times throughout the day.
So for us, we started with web, and we only recently went mobile, and well, on one platform at least. You definitely see higher engagement on mobile, but one thing we're really glad we did web first, and I think maybe it's a little overstated that you should go to mobile first all the time, is we saw huge uptake internationally, and that was really important for us from a product side, so that we understood in countries like Brazil and Germany how easily this can catch on and how excited they were about it, instead of trying to play the game of what's the market share in each country and how do you properly translate to all those.
And just kind of on this theme, when it comes to wearable computing, have you guys thought about how you want to apply your services to that? I mean, I think there's probably going to be some limits to, facial recognition, but I imagine there's got to be a lot of interesting ways that you can measure heart rate. You can do all these strange things, right, with wearable computing. I'm just curious if you guys have started to think about that, since according to Mary Meeker and others, we're already in the phase of flyables, wearables, and all of that. So, thoughts?
I think the first step is just adding context to whoever's around you. That's going to be really important, and then allow the natural social interactions to happen. But as far as measuring if somebody's randy or if somebody's into you, that sort of thing, that's going to be a bit different. I think, that's probably 5-10 years out where we're comfortable with that sort of mating ritual.
Got it.
I'm not sure, if you're wearing Google Glass, if that makes you more likely or not to find the girl. But I do think as the platform of wearables kind of matures, we would view it as just another platform. So if there was a way to, activate the user, let them know there was someone in that room that maybe shared something in common with them that maybe they should connect with, that would be great. But for us, we would need to see a more uptake of wearables to build for it.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of initial cool ideas. You have a few beers and it's like, wow, that's awesome. We should build that for Google Glass. But you should also have privacy implications at the highest point in the agenda. And then it gets more tricky. What can you build that actually protects the user? And that's actually a pretty cool idea. If I can see everyone in here and who likes Vikings or not. And but it's also they have some privacy implications. How do you make that in a safe manner? So.
Speaking of privacy, obviously Skout has had its fair share of privacy issues. Do you think, and this kind of ties to the initial question about consumer habits changing, do you think people care about privacy issues as it relates to their dating apps? I mean, Bang with Friends, you guys recently had a little snafu on Facebook, and that kind of died down rather quickly. So do people even care these days, or they're just so used to using dating apps anyway, that there's not this weird issue if their coworkers or their family finds out that they're avid users of Bang with Friends or what have you?
No, I mean there are millions of users using apps like ours, so these are normal people. I know many people in here use apps like Skout and MeetMe and Bang with Friends, but maybe this room is not representative of the average person in the world. So I think consumers are quite privacy savvy, I think. When it comes to privacy policies in terms of use, what is the content mine, isn't it mine? I definitely think consumers are getting more educated and they actually do care about these things. And there's also a lot of pressure in the industry to actually make these agreements more readable and don't cover it in 40 pages of legal text, but here's actually what we're doing with your content, with your location. Here's how you can delete your account, and make it very clear text. So having that said, I think it's the industry's responsibility to educate the users, right? You need to have safety tips. You need to educate your users continuously about the potential pitfalls. Because at the end of the day, any network that's online is a reflection of society, and society isn't always super pretty in some dark corners. So it's our job, I think, to be mindful of that and build the apps in a way that's actually protecting the user and educating them.
So I think you're right. I think the biggest part is educating, and especially with sensationalist headlines coming out. For ours, it was very difficult to get the word out to our users that actually they're not going to show in the graph search.
I think you actually responded to my question when I emailed. Yeah. It was really just you probably and your co-founder responding to emails. Yeah, and so we do our own support. But for us, getting the word out beyond that overloads the headline, and so people actually hear from us instead of privacy flaw in Bang with Friends or Skout or MeetMe is very difficult, and it's something that we want to continue, especially at Bang with Friends, to make sure that people understand
we do care about your privacy. That's why we made it anonymous. That's why, you know, nobody's going to know unless they click you as well. And that's something that we want to protect. And it's really hard to get through to users how they can best stay anonymous and best keep all of their data where they want it.
So we actually have a question from Twitter, I presume, and it's for Colin. The question from apparently a very concerned Bang with Friends user is, Bang with Friends was kicked out of the App Store. What's your plan to get it back, in there?
Stay strong. We're working with Apple. We see there are very similar apps that have a somewhat sexual nature in terms of connecting people. We definitely see Bang with Friends as more than just sexual as well. So, you know, we're working with them. But at the end of the day, it's their platform, and it's you know, we have to work hand in hand and hopefully get back on there.
What are some of the things that they're asking? You know, is it a matter of a name change here, or?
I mean, you know, Apple's very transparent, so let me hold my tongue. Basically, they haven't specified exactly what we can change, but we're trying to continue that dialogue and get back in. The thing is, they rejected it for 16.1, which is excessively crude or objectionable content. And we don't have, all your images are from Facebook, and we don't have any, you know, scandalous photos, or really the most objectionable thing might be the word bang. So, you know, we
so
see...
it's the outcome and the name or something right there.
Yeah, but even in the App Store, our name wasn't Bang with Friends. It was
Okay.
abbreviated BWF. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the long story, or the short story is that we're working with them, and we think it was more of a knee-jerk reaction just because of the big launch and TechCrunch and all that stuff that everybody noticed. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend the other day who uses these apps, and he was saying what he thought was interesting was how so many apps related to dating and casual dating, and you can even put Snapchat in this category. You know, the idea of sending, I mean, let's be honest, for the most part, most young people who are using Snapchat are using it to send, you know, flirtatious photos and such. And so, you know, he was telling me that he thought it was interesting that Snapchat and others are kind of trying to change their identity, trying to also broaden their networks. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Is that, I mean, Skout, it seems like, is trying to become something bigger in terms of a brand that is not more than just about dating. Is that something that you guys think about? Because when you look at these apps, a lot of them have millions and millions of users, and, you know, monetization, though, seems somewhat limited, and I think that's in part why they're going even more mainstream and branching out beyond dating. So I'm curious how you guys are thinking through that, if that's even something that you guys are considering.
Well, I think it's always going to be a big component, and why is that? 40 years ago, I believe 20% of the adults in this country were single. Now it's 50%. And you look at the younger generation, the 18 to 25-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, it's probably even a higher ratio. So I think that, like, when I go to the gym down the street here, of course, there's flirting going on. But it isn't a singles flirting gym where all singles go to flirt and meet. It's just a place where you go. Why don't I buy stuff at home and I work out or run somewhere where there's no people? Because it's actually exciting being around the random people. And yes, there will always be flirting. So I think it's, you can't build a network for meeting people saying there will never be any flirting, there will never be any babies made on this network, because then you will fail, right? You cannot do that. So. It's just part of human nature. It's part of our core in the brainstem. We want to have safety with Facebook and our friends, and we want to meet new people. That's also a big part of the brainstem, that we want to be out meeting new friends. I don't want to just hang out with my cousins, and, you know. So I think that's a very important thing. And so, you know, we started narrow, we went broader, and it's working really well. We saw some very interesting things, like we started as a dating app, and when we morphed into a people discovery network, our invites tripled. People were more willing to invite their friends to a network where you meet people than to a dating app. So,
yeah, you know, on the Snapchat point, I haven't thought too much about what the impact would be on dating, but I disagree that it's really just for flirtatious photos, right? I know a number of people who are now avid Snapchat users, and the photos are less flirtatious than just low quality, right? They're things that you don't want permanent on and maybe cluttering up your Facebook profile or your Instagram for a long period of time, but they're in the moment photos. And I think you're going to see, I think there's probably I think ephemeral messaging or ephemeral content period is just in a very early stage. I think you're going to see that apply to dating. And I think, those are probably being built now in terms of how, the best way to do that.
And also what happens is in a pseudo-anonymous or anonymous network, compared to a network where you actually have a social graph of friends, the issue of people letting their creepy side out is probably 10 times more. So we ban 70,000 people every month.
Really?
And community management is that's what we see as our #1 competency. That's something that just has to work. If you don't have very strict rules and a very aggressive community management machine, it will be overrun by, and this what we figured out is 3 to 4% of all straight men are, when they're anonymous, they just behave very badly. And it doesn't matter, it's across the board. If we've seen Harvard EDU addresses, it's across the board. There's not a particular category. It's straight men, 3 to 4% across the board. When they think no one is looking, they will just, behave badly. So women is much more well-behaved. We don't ban many women.
So, Colin, do you want the final word? And then we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think for us, we started with some form of dating because it's the strongest urge that people have, and it's something that really motivates you to get on the app. It's a problem that we think is bigger than just meeting new people. We think finding your mate or your friends with benefits is something that's very valuable, and we're doing it anyway, so we want to give them the tool. As far as expanding beyond that, I think you see a lot of our apps doing that just because it's a natural way. Your users start asking you, hey, I love this interaction model. I love meeting or discovering my friends or whatever it is this way, so I want to do it for other actions as well.
Great. Well, thanks so much, guys. Geoff, Christian, Colin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.